Joined now by Aric Almirola, driver of the number 43 Smithfield Ford for Richard Petty Motorsports. Glad to have Aric back with us. Aric, what's it like to be back in the race car?
It's pretty awesome to get that opportunity to get back behind the wheel of that Smithfield Ford Fusion and go out in race competition and turn some laps in practice. I got to get back in the car Tuesday at Charlotte, and so I was back on the racetrack. But it's always different when you come for race weekend and you go out there and you're getting ready to compete for the weekend. So it felt really good to be back, and it felt really nice to be able to walk through the garage and see all of my peers and see the guys in the garage area, and to have so many people that walk by and they're like, hey, welcome back, glad to have you back. It certainly makes me feel good.
Outstanding. Let's go ahead and open the floor for questions. We'll start here with Rich, and we'll work our way around.
Rich Thompson, Boston Herald. I was just wondering, is a short track, short race kind of the ideal setting to get your sea legs back?
Not really. I think we didn't script it that way. I think it's a great place to come back, but it wasn't, when we looked at the schedule, it wasn't like we just decided, oh, Loudon's the place. The doctors from the very beginning were very clear with me with this injury. They were like 8 to 12 weeks at best. You're more probable to look upwards of 16 weeks. And so I was concerned about the later return, and so I was really diligent with my recovery and my rehab and all of my therapy. So to be able to come back right at 8 weeks just so happened to be Loudon, New Hampshire. And of all the tracks that you look at on the schedule, this is certainly the one that has the least amount of loading as far as banking's concerned and speed. So this is a great racetrack for me to come back and sort of, knock the cobwebs off and get back in the race car and, not really put my spine through a lot of loading for a long period of time. I think Charlotte, Texas, Dover, those kind of places would probably be a lot worse. But I feel great. I ran a lot of laps at Charlotte. We were there for 4 hours, and I was pretty much in the car a large majority of the time, and I felt great inside the car. So I don't really foresee any issues. I might have some soreness and some spottiness after the race, but I think that's to be expected as far as my doctors are concerned.
Go next to Matt, then to Amy.
Matthew Warnes, Race Pro Weekly, WWLP, NBC Springfield. Aric, after that practice there, can you just talk about the VHT on the track? What do you think it's going to be like on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's certainly moved the typical racing lane around what we typically see here. So it has been sort of a new racetrack, so to speak. Really, we typically run in that second lane off of the yellow line, and we usually dread getting up over that seam. When you look back at video of the races, all of the cars really try and keep their right sides inside of that seam. Well, now that third lane has the PJ1 in it, you see a lot of cars entering in that lane, straddling that seam, and it certainly has sort of thrown everybody a new racetrack here, and I think it's going to change sort of the way we approach the racetrack, the way we attack the corners.
Go to Amy, then to Pat, then to Jeff.
Amy here, up Race Pro Weekly. During your absence, how do you feel about the drivers that did take the wheel of the number 43 car, and what ways did you help them in there?
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing for anybody to kind of get thrown into a seat that's it's not their race car. They're trying to pitch in and do their part to be a relief driver. And so I was really happy and really grateful for the guys that stepped in with Regan and Billy and Daryl to come and give their effort and their 2 cents. And it was really good for our race team also to kind of see, because for the last almost 6 years now, they've had one guy giving them feedback, at least on the 43 car. So to have a few other guys get in the car and sort of give their 2 cents, and really for a lot of their comments to match up with some of the things that I've been saying about the race cars, at least for this year. So that was really nice, and I'm really thankful for those guys to be able to step in sort of on moment's notice and get behind the wheel and go do a good job. Because I've talked a lot about it this week, but the sport changes so fast. The setups, the cars, everybody continues to evolve and get faster and faster and faster. And so you can't really just take 8 weeks off and show up to the racetrack and go ride around. You still have to go compete. You still have to go try things. And in a way, it really sort of opened the box for our team to go and try some things that, we sometimes get stuck in a rut and sort of do some things and kind of get this little box that we live in and don't really get much outside of that. So to have some other drivers come in, not really have points or anything really on the line for those guys, and sort of just go at it with an open mind, it was really good. And I think Drew and all the guys on my team really rallied together, and they've continued to make the cars better and better and better. So that way when I get back in the car, we can hit the ground running.
Go next to Pat, then to Jeff, then to Jerry.
Pat Nicola, NASCAR.com. What are your expectations for yourself and for the 43 team the rest of the year now?
Just to honestly pick up where we left off. I thought before I wrecked at Kansas, we were a top 15 car. We consistently ran there. We finished 9th at Richmond. We finished 4th at Talladega. I was really excited about Kansas. We had a really good run at Kansas going in the beginning of the race. We had some issues mid part of the race, and then we wrecked. And I thought even middle part of the race, when we had kind of gotten back around 20th, I thought that we had a good enough car to rally back. And so I think really for us, it's really about picking back up where we left off. I'd love to sit here and tell you, we're going to go out and win this weekend, but we have to be realistic and understand where our cars are at. And right now for us, it's about getting back to a top 15, top 10 car. And if we can do that, we'll put ourselves in position to strategize to maybe try and pull a win out. But, you can't do that from running 20th. You can't do that from running 22nd, because a guy that's running 12 spots ahead of you is also going to gamble on fuel. So you have to be running up front to be able to capitalize on opportunities like that. And so for the 43 team and all of us on the Smithfield Ford Fusion, it's about getting this car to running up to where we can take those opportunities and gamble on 2 tires or no tires or fuel strategy to go and try and get us a win here at the close of the year.
Jeff?
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Aric, as you take a step back and you were watching the races on TV and having sort of that experience that you don't usually get when you're in the car, anything jump out at you over the course of these 8 weeks where you're like, this is some new perspective I didn't have before?
Yeah, that I wish we had in-car cameras on every race car. Sitting at home watching on TV, I thought the experience that I got from watching was rather eye-opening. The truth be known, for the last 6 years, I haven't watched many Cup races on TV. So to sit at home and have my tablets out and have lap times and scanners and everything going and watching the race and listening to the broadcast, it's really informative. You can really get a lot from watching the race, and even though you're not there. And so it was a great way for me to keep up with what was going on with the team, what was going on with the changes during the race and the pit stops. But from watching the broadcast, I thought that it would be so cool to have cameras in all the race cars. When you see a guy win a race, for his first time, how cool would that be to get his reaction inside the car, with an in-car camera? Or when you see somebody having trouble to be able to pan to their in-car camera and see their reaction, their frustration. So I feel like, from watching at home, that's one thing that I wish we could get is more in-car cameras inside all of these race cars, just to be able to show the fan what the driver's going through, not only from just racing, but their reactions and their emotions sort of in the moment.
Go to Jerry, then back to Matthew.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net, and PRN. I actually have 2. First one is, with NASCAR's strict testing policy, did you feel like you were stealing cookies on Tuesday when you were out there at Charlotte?
No, not really. They have a strict testing policy, and we went there and we had plenty of NASCAR personnel there, and they were very aware that we weren't going there. We weren't testing parts and pieces. We weren't testing setups. We went there. We made a couple laps. We made a few small changes just to get the balance where I wanted it. And then after that, it was about just making long runs to make sure that my back could hold up to the loads and the G-forces during a fuel run. So we didn't really gain anything out of going there, and it's important for NASCAR to be able to do that, to let these guys, and including myself and Dell Jr., when he came back, to go and test when you're coming back from a medical injury, because you don't want to waste the team's effort to fly all the way to Loudon, New Hampshire, and me have never turned a lap on a racetrack. And even though I feel great and my CT scans look good, my MRIs look good, and I go out there and my first lap on the racetrack, I'm like, oh man, I've got a lot of pain. I don't know if I can do this. It just really sets everything back, and it sort of really screws the race team out of that whole weekend, because now you're trying to change seats and put another driver in when he wasn't planning on being there. So it was great for NASCAR to allow us to go, let me run. I think I ran probably close to 100 laps, and I had no pain, so it was easy for the doctors to say, you're good to go.
Second, you were critical of the photographers at the incident at Kansas. We've talked about this. Yep. There's been a rule enforcement or policy change for photographers on how they take photos or where specifically. Were you aware of that? How does that make you feel now?
Yeah, I was, and I was involved with NASCAR on talking about it. And really, here's the deal: is that, and I think every photographer would appreciate this or understand this, but there's no photographer that's allowed in the infield care center. Right? That's a private area. That's for the doctors and everybody to work on the driver. And no photographer in their right mind would just bust up in the infield care center and start taking pictures of a driver in there. But, being out on the racetrack, obviously I'm out in a public setting, but I was really in a mobile infield care center. I had doctors and track safety crew and a lot of people working on me, trying to help me sort of immobilize my spine, try and help me get out of the car, and I was in a very vulnerable position. And so I felt like the photographers just didn't respect that privacy, and I understand that they're trying to go in there and snap their photo, but I felt like it was up to NASCAR to maybe help with that and help keep the perimeter back. And so we've talked about that. We've had a lot of discussion about that. And I think now they're aware, and I don't think it'll happen again.
Matthew?
Aric, just a follow-up. 4 different series here this weekend. 3 of them are kind of using the same tire. The modifieds are using Hoosier. You think there will be any effect on the track with the Hoosier rubber when you guys go out there for practice tomorrow morning?
Yeah, it always changes. I mean, just today, the modifieds practiced for an hour and a half, and then we rolled out for practice this morning. So the track changes as that Hoosier rubber wears off, and we put our own rubber down. So but it's nothing new. It's the same thing that's been happening every time we come to New Hampshire for the last, as long as I can remember, probably longer than Ryan Newman's been coming here, so which is a long time. But yeah, it's not different. We always show up, and there's always modifieds, and there's always different rubber on the racetrack. So I don't think that's a big deal for us.
Any additional questions for Aric? Let's go to Lee.
You have 2 cups of coffee. You're double fisting coffee.
Hey, so do you feel 100%? I mean, after really getting out there and shaking down the car, do you feel 100% now?
I do. I really do. I think. I do. I feel great. I feel like I did. Pre-crash. So I think based on the word that I've gotten from the doctors, Dr. Petty and Dr. Cork, I went again yesterday morning to Charlotte Medical Center there to get tested, and they looked at everything, and everything looks great. I have no concern based on their doctor's recommendation that I can get back in the race car, and physically I feel great. So there's some muscles, I think, that after the race on Sunday might be a little sore or tired just because I've been out of the race car for 2 months, but that'll come back. Even when you start out the year after taking all winter off, the first few races, there's muscles that you're like, man, I haven't used those in a few months, but after you get back in the race car week after week for a few weeks, it gets back to normal.